The following was originally posted to r/nosleep by a friend. You can find the link to the original post in the description, and if you enjoy it, I implore you to visit the thread and give it an upvote. Anyway, without further ado, I present to you Lemon Nipples. So this story goes back about a decade ago. I was 16 and hanging out with a couple of friends downtown. Normal shenanigans, getting drunk off our parents' liquor, and somehow scrounging enough money for a couple grams of weed and smokes. My parents were pretty strict, but luckily I had a friend who was a few years older than me, whom they loved. I would tell my parents that I was sleeping over at her house, which made staying out to the wee hours of the morning pretty easy, since her parents would usually head out to their cottage for the weekend. It was late one Saturday night. I'm not sure the exact hour, but there was still a good amount of people downtown. The bars were still open. Let's say it was around midnight. We were fairly drunk, just wandering around, skateboarding, carrying on before we went to my friend's house for the night to crash. The town is fairly small, and there's a heavy population of drug addicts, schizophrenics, and homeless people that usually hung around downtown, panhandling and just doing weird stuff. There was a story going around about this guy that people would call Lemon Nipples. Apparently he was just batshit crazy. No one really knew what his deal was, but he was in and out of mental ward at our local hospital for many years. He would normally hang out downtown and just say weird stuff, scream random things, harass people, break into vehicles, defecate on the floors of stores, smash shop windows, the list goes on. I had only ever heard the stories, never actually ran into him myself, but usually wouldn't be out of the hospital for too long. I wasn't really sure where he got the name Lemon Nipples from, till this night. We heard about a party in the downtown ghetto area, so we decided to head there and check it out. One of my random friends lived there. The house was basically always full of the punk-type younger crowd. Loud music, lots of booze, various drug users hung out there. It was down a shady side street from downtown. There's a grocery store directly beside it, and a rundown apartment building across the street. On the corner, there's a gas station and a convenience store. We decided to take a shortcut through the alley between the grocery store and the party house. We didn't think anything of it. There was 5 of us, and most of us had skateboards, so we felt pretty safe. As we were walking down the alley, we noticed a guy standing beside a large dumpster. We all kind of quieted down, realizing he was talking to himself. Couldn't make out what he was saying, but I started to feel uneasy, so I grabbed my friend's arm. We all kind of moved over to the opposite side of the guy and slowed down, watching him as we passed. As we got closer, he looked up and started growling. Noticed he was sort of hunched over a bit, hands between his legs. He was wearing a sheet or cape or something tied around his neck. He looked batshit crazy. He continued to growl at us. One of my friends started laughing and fucking barking at him for some reason. He definitely didn't like this. He started screaming at the top of his lungs, grabbed some metal bar, and started fucking bashing himself in the head with it. At this point, we started running out of the alley, fucking scared and screaming. We continued to run to the party house and went in. I found my friend who lived there, sitting on the couch and drinking. I told him what happened. He said the guy in the alley was totally fucking Lemon Nipples. He said he'd seen him roaming around the area about a week ago near the alley and in the grocery store parking lot. Lemon Nipples was trying to get into one of the grocery store workers' cars late one night, and he went up to him threatening to call the cops. He said Lemon Nipples ran away and hadn't seen him since. A couple of people at the party heard us talking about him and shared some of their stories about seeing him downtown randomly, and all the weird shit he does. For the rest of the night, I didn't think much of it. My friends and I continued to party until the wee hours of the morning, until we finally decided to leave and crash back at my friend's house. When we left, we took a peek into the alley to see if Lemon Nipples was still there. Couldn't see a silhouette of anyone, but we were all too sketched out to go down the alley. Turned and kept on walking to our friend's house. As we continued down the ghetto side of downtown, we came up to the Say No to Drugs Park. It is called this due to the reputation of people doing various drugs in the park, and someone spray painting that phrase on the side of some play equipment. There's a swing set by the fence near the sidewalk we were on. There was someone sitting on the swing slowly going back and forth, while dragging their feet in the sand below. Sure enough, you guessed it, it was Lemon Nipples. We're all pretty fucked up at this point, and one of my friends yells, "Fucking Lemon Nipples!" Suddenly he stopped swinging. We all started laughing and stopped on the other side of the fence. His face was all bloody, metal bar at his feet, and he had some sort of plastic bag in his lap. Another friend yelled out to him, asking why people called him Lemon Nipples. He started growling at us again, and stood up. He's very skinny and frail looking, and I noticed that his chest was covered in all these cuts and gashes. They looked fresh, and some were still bloody. I remember drunkenly whispering, more like yelling considering the state I was in, "Look at his fucking chest." My friend started screaming and yelled, "Oh my god, he doesn't have any fucking nipples." I tried to focus on his upper chest and, well, there was 2 circular chunks missing where his nipples should be. He definitely heard us at this point and stopped growling, turned around super fast, and just bolted across the park, leaving his bag and metal bar behind. We were all losing our fucking minds at this point. A few of us were freaked out, and the rest of us were laughing hysterically. Oh, the effects of alcohol and various drugs. One of my friends had the bright idea of going into the park and seeing what was in the bag. We were all kind of curious at this point and also wanted to stick together, so we followed behind them. We stood around as my friend crouched down to open the bag. A couple of us pulled our cell phones out to light up the area while we examined the contents of the bag. The entire bag was literally full of lemons. Various states of decay. Some were fresh, others moldy, starting to turn black. We were all fucking weirded out at this point and took off out of the park. The next day my friend's parents came home from their cottage. We all had mixed feelings about that night and were recalling what the fuck happened. It all seemed like some weird-ass dream. My friend, the one whose house we were staying at, wanted to tell her parents what happened. Even though he was clearly fucking insane, we were all kind of worried about his state with all those cuts on him and, well, lack of nipples. We decided to tell her dad because he was much more easygoing and was aware of our underage drunken weekend adventures and didn't seem to care too much. He was really taken back by our story and told us not to hang around those sketchy parts of downtown. He said he was going to talk to one of his poker buddies, who also happened to be a local police officer, just to see if there's any calls about him. We begged him not to make an actual report because, well, we were too freaked out dealing with the police at this point. Most of us were still baked as fuck and clearly underage. Several days passed and I kind of forgot about the weird events from that night. Went over to my friend's house midweek to hang out. Her dad and a bunch of his buddies were over playing poker and drinking. We were hanging out in the basement when her dad calls us upstairs. We went up and he introduced us to everyone. One guy that was there laughed and said, "So, I guess you guys met Lemon Nipples." We both said yes simultaneously. He told us he was a cop and my friend's dad told him about what happened. He said he did a bit of research into this guy's record. Turns out his real name is Lawrence. Apparently on a separate occasion, about 5 years prior, someone found him in a Tim Hortons bathroom downtown. He had cut off his nipples and stuck them to the mirror. Blood everywhere, and just sitting on the floor, rolling a lemon back and forth. He was brought to the hospital, treated, spent some time in the psych ward there. After our run-in with him, there was apparently a call about a man standing out front of the radio station downtown cutting himself. Fortunately, the police were not quick enough and couldn't find him. I remember looking at my friend like, what the fuck? Her dad's friend reassured us. There was officers constantly patrolling the downtown area hoping to find him. And when they did, he'd likely not be able to get out of the mental ward again. We were kind of freaked out by the story, but laughed it off and shared the story with our friends and anyone we ran into that had their own encounters with Lemon Nipples. Several months after our run-in, my friend's dad confirmed that the police had ended up finding him. He was living in someone's shed, 3 houses down from my friend's house. Apparently sometime on New Year's Eve, the family that lived there heard a commotion in their shed and, well, not wanting to take any risks, called the police right away. When they showed up, they found Lemon Nipples in the shed. All of the storage items were stacked against one wall, and there was shit smeared everywhere, weird symbols drawn on the walls with it. Lemon Nipples was sitting on the floor of the shed screaming at the top of his lungs, waving around a set of gardening shears, hitting random things. Police think he had been living in the shed for quite some time, and that was pretty much the end of Lemon Nipples. As far as I know, he's in some mental ward and hopefully never gets out again.